Please enjoy this preview from Dragon Dawn, Eclipse, read to you by the author. Exzarate woke to the sound of beating wings, which at first he mistook for marching. He sat up quickly, and gave a sigh of relief when he saw Blade Dancer in the early morning light. The dragon had already delivered his load to the swamp and landed near the camp, breathing heavily. "By the spirits," he exclaimed, "I return." Exzarate chuckled, standing and going over to him. "I trust it was an interesting journey," he said. "Interesting," Blade Dancer snorted, "is not the word." The sun was starting to show itself over the eastern horizon, and Exzarate went to rouse Callha and Delmon. They wakened easily, both looking tense and worried. They made another cold meal and hastily ate it. Blade Dancer had caught something in the swamp earlier and had eaten it there, so he settled down for a quick rest before the battle. It was a short one, for not long after he had drifted, the Zelin-gaals war horns sounded. They all started at the sound, listening to its echo, and they knew it was time. Delmon took a deep breath as he stood. "This is it," he whispered, and then in a louder voice, "It is time." Callha nodded. As to ward off any fatal blows to her own head, she fashioned herself a crystalline helmet of ice in the fashion of the Demorian royal guard. Exzarate mounted Blade Dancer, and the royals mounted their horses, listening to the sounds of the Zelin-gaals army readying itself, unaware that there was a battle waiting for them atop the ridge. There was an echo of marching feet below them, and the four knew that it was time to do or die. It would have been foolish to say that they were not afraid, for they were all afraid. Only a fool is not afraid. Delmon bowed his head and closed his eyes. He was terrified, yet he did not want to show it. The marching increased in volume, coming closer every minute. Callha pursed her lips, her horse whinnying as if it felt the same as she. Slowly, Delmon raised his head, taking a deep breath, and drew Callha's sword. He pressed the flat of the blade to his face, his eyes closed again. "With me, Marina," he whispered, breathing the name of his betrothed to the blade, and the names of all who had deceased. "With me, Callha, father, mother." The sounds were more fierce. The Zelin-gaals were almost here. He opened his eyes and drew the blade from his face, facing the ridge. "With me, all of you." The first soldier of the cavalry came over the ridge, pausing in confusion at what he saw. Delmon raised his blade to the sky, shouting, "For Demar!" Callha raised her blade to the sky as well, and shouted with her brother. Their horses reared at the noise, and Blade Dancer roared his own battle cry. They charged forth. Delmon and Callha toward the approaching soldiers, Blade Dancer and Exzarate to the sky. So it had begun, the last fight for Nelvania. The soldier who stood the ridge drew back, surprised, giving Blade Dancer time to snatch him from his horse and throw him below into the other soldiers. He screamed as he went, momentarily distracting the other cavalry, which gave Delmon and Callha the upper hand. Their swords came flashing through the air and down against the Zelin-gaals. Several men fell in the first few moments, having been caught entirely by surprise. Dragon Dawn, Eclipse, now available to you exclusively on Amazon in digital and paperback.